The Lone Ranger was real. He was black. He was born into slavery. And the world wasn't ready to say his name. Bass Reeves came into the world in 1838 as the property of a Texas rancher named William Steele Reeves. He spent the first years of the Civil War as an enslaved man, accompanying his enslaver into battle, until at some point, the exact circumstances were never fully documented. He escaped into Indian Territory, the vast stretch of land west of Arkansas that would later become Oklahoma. He lived among the Cherokee, Creek, and Seminole nations, learning their languages, their tracking methods, their knowledge of terrain. He learned to ride and to shoot. He developed the skills that would define the next 40 years of his life. When the Civil War ended and the 13th Amendment made him legally free, Bass Reeves was a man with a specific and unusual set of capabilities. Fluency in multiple Native American languages, an intimate knowledge of Indian Territory, exceptional horsemanship, and a marksmanship ability that would become legendary. In 1875, Judge Isaac Parker, the man they called the hanging judge, responsible for bringing law to the lawless territory west of Arkansas, appointed Bass Reeves as a Deputy United States Marshal. He was one of the first black men to hold that position west of the Mississippi. What followed over the next 3 decades is one of the most extraordinary careers in the history of American law enforcement. Bass Reeves operated in Indian Territory, approximately 74,000 square miles of dense forest, river crossings, and isolated settlements, with no reliable roads and no telegraph lines, populated by a mixture of native nations, freed black settlers, white homesteaders, and the full range of the outlaw community that the post-war West had produced. Into this terrain he rode alone, or with minimal backup, with warrants for men who had every reason to resist arrest and no particular fear of the law. He arrested more than 3,000 people over the course of his career. He killed 14 men in the line of duty, always, by the accounts of witnesses and official records, in self-defense or in the execution of lawful arrest. He was ambushed, shot at, and targeted by the outlaws he pursued. He was never seriously wounded. Not once. The methods he used were as remarkable as the record. He was a master of disguise, a skill born partly of necessity, since arriving at a fugitive's location in a deputy marshal's uniform was an efficient way to get shot. He would approach in the clothes of a farmhand, a drifter, a preacher. He would spend days establishing a false identity before making his move. He preferred to talk men into custody rather than shoot them, and he was apparently extraordinarily effective at it. A large man of physical presence and personal authority who could shift registers between the warmth of an ordinary conversation and the iron certainty of an officer of the law in a way that persuaded people to come quietly when shooting would have been the simpler option. He was also illiterate for most of his career, a consequence of the laws that had made educating enslaved people a crime. He could not read the warrants he served. He had them read to him once, and he memorized them. He served hundreds of warrants from memory without error. The test that defined him came in 1902, when a warrant was issued for the arrest of his son, Benjamin Reeves, for the murder of his wife. Bass Reeves requested the assignment himself. He arrested his son. Benjamin Reeves was tried, convicted, and served his sentence. Bass Reeves continued his career. He never publicly described what it cost him. He was the law, and the law did not make exceptions, not even for his own blood. The connection to the Lone Ranger has been examined by historians and is supported by compelling circumstantial evidence. The character of the Lone Ranger first appeared in a radio program in 1933, created by Franz Stryker and George Trendle. The character as originally conceived, a masked lawman operating in Texas and Indian Territory, accompanied by a Native American companion named Tonto, known for a code of non-lethal justice and famous for leaving silver bullets as a calling card. bears a significant resemblance to the documented career of Bass Reeves. Reeves was known to leave silver coins at the scenes of arrests. He operated in exactly the territory the Lone Ranger was set in. He worked with Native American scouts and developed close professional relationships with members of the native nations of Indian Territory. Whether the creators of the Lone Ranger knew of Reeves and drew consciously from his life, or whether the parallels developed independently from the same raw material of the frontier West, cannot be proven with certainty. What is certain is that the Lone Ranger became one of the most famous characters in American popular culture, and Bass Reeves, whose actual career was more remarkable than any fictional account, remained almost entirely unknown for most of the 20th century. He retired from the Marshal Service in 1907, when Indian Territory became the state of Oklahoma. He joined the Muskogee Police Department, still working law enforcement in his late 60s, still serving warrants, still bringing people in. He died in 1910 at the age of 71, having lived long enough to see the territory he had policed become a state, having arrested a number that very few law enforcement officers in American history have matched. His name was absent from most histories of the West for decades. The Lone Ranger was everywhere, in radio, in film, in television, in the cultural memory of a country that loved the idea of the masked lawman without being prepared to see the face behind the mask. The face was Bass Reeves. The mask was what the era put over it. Both are true. Both matter. And the man who arrested 3,000 outlaws and once arrested his own son and was never seriously wounded in 30 years of service in the most dangerous territory in America deserves to have his name said clearly, without a mask, without a legend in the way. His name was Bass Reeves. He was the Lone Ranger. He was real.